kind of what's coming in the pipeline that we've been trying to prep for is obviously AI-driven cars, because they obviously have to read the road signs, and how is that going to look? So that's certainly kind of in the future, things that we're looking at, things that, our partners with 3M, as far as the sheeting goes, that they're looking at more closely. And we're not sure how that's going to look, but obviously we have to make sure that we're, talking and on the edge to make sure that we're not left behind.
Welcome to Well Said, Finger Lakes, the podcast where we talk with interesting people and businesses and organizations from in and around the Finger Lakes region of New York State. My name is Jeremiah Craig, and we're here in the live room at Well Said Media in Ithaca, New York. And our guest today is the marketing director for Eastern Metal Signs and Safety and Elmira Signs in Elmira, New York. Please welcome Shaun Peden. How's it going, Shaun? Thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Could you give us a rundown before we actually get into some nitty-gritty conversation and questions? Can you tell us what Eastern Metal Signs and Safety does, and the other division, Elmira Signs, as well?
Sure. So it's obviously split in half. The traffic end of things is Eastern Metal Signs and Safety, so everything from cones, sign stands, temporary traffic, products is all on that side of things, and the other end is Elmira Signs, which covers local business, so, Ithaca, Elmira, Horseheads, Corning, Big Flats, that kind of area.
And for the road safety stuff, is that nationwide? Is that local? Is that worldwide? Where's your business?
Worldwide would be nice, but we primarily focus nationwide, and we have government contracts in a number of different states, and that's kind of our bread and butter, if you will, is not just focusing on the eastern region, although that is where we're most competitive, obviously due to shipping costs, but we have contracts all over the nation, so it's very cool.
Wow, that is really cool, and I look forward to diving into that a little bit more in a little bit. But first, I want to know a little bit about you and when you joined the company and what your days are like.
Sure, that's an interesting question. So I was with the company about 2 years ago, and I was there for a number of years. And I actually left to, do other ventures with a startup locally, and I was called back, and the opportunity came, and I couldn't pass it up. I mean, it's a unique opportunity. It's a unique business. You get to flex creatively on the marketing side, but there's also a very granular specification side that, so it kind of pleases both sides of the brain for me, which, I am more right brain than left brain, but hey, you don't get to choose these things.
No doubt, no doubt. So is that why you went back? Is because that granular little area of your job, is that is that difficult to know, and it was difficult for them to find somebody else to do it, and they asked you back for that reason?
I'm not sure of the specifics, but from what I had gathered in talking to people, they had a couple other previous people that they were trying to kind of shoehorn into that position, and it, for whatever reason, didn't work out. So I guess they went back to the drawing board, i.e. myself.
Nice. Well, that's good to know that they felt so comfortable with you that they asked you back, and startup is really difficult.
It is.
It's a difficult space to navigate.
It is. It was a stretch to pitch to the family, but obviously there's lots of promises of gold, and after a while you kind of have to see the writing on the wall. I don't know if you're familiar with working at one, but it's a unique experience. So you know.
Yeah, it's definitely go go go. Like every day could be the last day. It's very stressful, but it's also exciting at the same time.
It is. It's the duality.
Yep. So you do marketing. You're the director of marketing at Eastern Metal Signs and Safety and Elmira Signs. How do you approach marketing for your company, or both sides? I'm sure it's very different for both. What's the best way for you to garner attention these days?
I mean, obviously online is the the king and has been for the past X number of years. Now that it's just become so important to have a strong online presence, not even just with reaching your customers, but allowing them to make purchases from you, and kind of making sure that process is as streamlined as possible. I think, at least on the traffic end of things, that's kind of for a small to medium sized business such as ourselves. On the traffic side of things, that's kind of the difficulty, is kind of rolling out something that all of our customers can partake in, that we can suss out properly and have it be a great experience for everybody. So
makes sense. And all of this is done in Elmira. And I was kind of curious, like, how good is that area for your company? I mean, I saw online that you built the factory in the 1950s there, that big facility that you have.
Yep.
Why Elmira, and what is it about that area that makes it so great to stay there for so long?
So, interesting question. So yeah, like you said, 1950s, 1947 is the official date of when things kind of popped off.
Always in Elmira.
Always in Elmira, and that's kind of something that we have been, not to dodge your question, that we've always been proud of, is that we're doing everything right there in house.
Yeah.
All the products that we bring in are made right there in our facility. We don't outsource any of the manufacturing process. It's American-made steel, which a lot of our competitors, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on who you talk to, can't necessarily say. But yeah, I think, going back to your question, the area itself kind of lends itself to a sense of community, because it is very close-knit, but with the history of Elmira, at that time was very prosperous, and things were going very well. I think there's been dips and things like that over time, but my bosses, the Harrisons, came in about 10 years ago and purchased the company from the original owners. And things weren't really going so hot for the company through kind of the 80s and 90s. So they kind of brought that back up, revitalized, kind of streamlined the process for a lot of things there. Without them, I don't think that, we'd be talking, basically.
And that's great to hear, too, because you hear of so many different companies all around the nation having to pack up and do something overseas, out of Mexico, take their business elsewhere just to save costs or to make more money. So the fact that you and Eastern Metal Signs and Safety has stayed in Elmira for so long is really respectable. It must be exciting to the community. And it's, like you said, there's definitely some amount of pride that has to be behind that.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's a challenge because obviously, as we all know, you could outsource, you could cut costs, and things would be better for you on the other end. But we've been doing it this way for so long, and we feel like the product that we are giving to customers is of the best quality. And that's kind of, at the end of the day, what we care about the most. So, and it's safety, and you can't really cut corners with safety.
100%. And you're talking about one of your customers being the governments or state governments. What kind of government standards do you have to meet? Is it like really strict, or do you still have some space to innovate new things when it comes to safety and the signage that folks use on the side of the roads?
Sure. Great question, by the way. So it's state specific, and it might not be obvious to you just driving along, looking at road signs and things like that, but different states have different expectations and specifications that they expect based on their own body of representatives that say, we want, for signs, there's specific sheeting reflectivity, different grades, higher intensity grades. So it really depends on what they're looking for. And like I said, each state is different, and you kind of have to tailor your approach differently depending on the state that you're in. But on the other hand, as you had said, is there kind of a way to innovate with that? There is, to a point. We have and can make our own products. Obviously, like I said, we have a full manufacturing facility, so we do make new products. You do have to get them spec'd in, and it is a process, because sometimes it hits and other times they don't see the need, and you've wasted R&D and lots of man hours and money and time. So it's hard, but that's the game we're in. But it's exciting.
Yeah, and I'm sure that goes along with a lot of different sorts of products that businesses make all the time. R&D, sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. Does it also go back to the state government itself and what they vote on and what they need, and then they come to you and say, actually, we need these things differently now, and then you have to innovate products based off of what that state needs? Does that ever happen too?
Very rarely, okay. Which is surprising. Traffic safety, unfortunately, has just kind of always looked the way that it has for a number of years. So there's not really a lot of innovation. Kind of what's coming in the pipeline that we've been trying to prep for is obviously AI-driven cars, because they obviously have to read the road signs, and how is that going to look? So that's certainly kind of in the future, things that we're looking at, things that our partners with 3M, as far as the sheeting goes, that they're looking at more closely. And we're not sure how that's going to look, but obviously we have to make sure that we're talking and on the edge to make sure that we're not left behind. So
yeah, because you want to be the first people to make moves there.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Also important to note, as far as competition on the traffic side, we're one of 7 in the entire nation as far as companies go. So while competition isn't plentiful, it's, aggressive. And when you have product lines that are very similar to each other because of state specifications, it's hard to kind of make a differentiation based on, well, they're a traffic safety company, we're a traffic safety company. How is there, who's better, who's not? Is it kind of all the same? You kind of have to try to stand out.
And by taking the jump on AI and self-driving cars is one of those rare moments in this industry where you have a chance to take a little bit more market share. Sure. Because there's only 6 other companies.
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
That'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, we don't know either. We don't know which way the quarter's going to fall either. But we have to be in the conversation, because at that point, wherever it lands, we have to follow. We don't have any kind of purview over how that falls, but we have to make sure that we're there for it. So
and. It's that kind of reminds me of something like those slow stop signs, right? Mm-hmm. The ones that somebody holds and spins around.
Yep. Slow paddle.
Yeah, the paddles there, because that's something that the AI car will have to read and recognize, right?
100%.
So how does that register with the car? Is there any talking with any of the tech companies that are making some of this self-driving software to see how they do things so that you can make those signs specifically for their software or AI?
I'm sure that conversation is taking place, but probably not necessarily on our level. Again, it's more the sheeting companies, 3M, yep. Orifal. Obviously, most people know 3M, but if you're into crafting and vinyl application, people do know them as well too. So it's really going to come down to how they decide that it's going to look, and obviously they're working with the federal government and tech companies to see how is it going to read. Is it going to be some kind of embedded QR-like code that's within the sign that only the car can read, that not necessarily humans can read? It's a lot, but we, like I said, we just try to be there in the conversation, and however it goes, we're going to follow.
I love that. That's so interesting to me. Just because, of course, traffic safety and the folks doing the work, their safety is utmost importance.
Huge. And I mean, you hear about all the time, accidents. Mm-hmm. I mean, being a flagger out there in work zones is incredibly dangerous, especially on some of these highways. You're going 70, 75 miles an hour. I mean, you got to give it up to them, and we want to make sure that they're as protected as possible with the equipment that we provide. So.
And I definitely appreciate it too, because I did that in college. I was working at the Water Authority.
Oh, okay.
So I was out on main breaks, on grade and seed crews. So when we were on those roads, there was always somebody flagging traffic or with the stop slow paddle. And while I was doing that, I recognized how hard this stuff is actually treated. Like, when you're out on the road, these crews, like, some of this stuff is really just thrown around, beaten up. So I'm kind of curious now, like, how do you test your products to make sure it can withstand some of the treatment that it receives on the road?
Sure. So as you said, I mean, road crews are not gentle.
No.
and as such, we don't expect them to be, because that's not the point. Is not to maintain the quality of the products, just to make sure that they work and do their job. But I mean, they're tested, road tested, if you will, and these are all designs that have been tested over the years. And I mean, they're steel or aluminum. Most of our sign stands come in kind of those two flavors, and they're incredibly durable. I mean, you can throw them against a wall as many times as you want, and nothing's ever going to happen to them. Having said that, we have seen, over time where these things kind of, obviously degrade, but, not after plenty of years of hard use. So it's interesting to see some stuff come back sometimes, depending on treatment, how it looks.
So because you guys have been in business for so long and have seen what this stuff looks like when it comes back, you're able to make those changes and innovations slowly rather than, put it through rigorous testing every time you come out with something new. Like, it's just part of your business. You understand that the fact that these are going to see a lot of harsh treatment out on the road during with road crews.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have our base level of products, and if we ever need to make adjustments, we can. Whereas, again, our competition that is outsourcing overseas can't necessarily make those changes without a lengthy process, because obviously they have other partners involved within the manufacturing of it. Whereas, just as an example, I can walk out to the floor and talk to the floor manager and say, hey, can we take a look at this? This mechanism doesn't seem to be, for this specific state, kind of working, as they are expecting. Could we maybe look at something else specifically for them? And we can do that. And they can buy that from us. We can set up its own product that only they get, so it doesn't kind of muddy the waters of the other products. And oftentimes that's kind of how the R&D works, is with a question from outside, and we go, we could do that.
Nice. So the turnaround time is a lot faster.
Oh, 100%.
With working here in the U.S. than trying to outsource to China or someplace else.
For sure. Absolutely.
I love that. So that's even more of a benefit of staying right here in Elmira, in the United States, and doing business just right here in the United States.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. If we could switch gears a little bit to some hot topics, kind of.
Yeah,
and I want
absolutely.
to talk about hiring and the labor force. It seems like everybody's hiring all around, and everybody needs more people to work right now. How is Eastern Metal Signs and Safety and Elmira Signs, how are they dealing with this? Is there any difficulties in workforce and hiring right now?
I think, and I can only speak to what I am in charge of as far as graphic designers and things like that.
Right.
I'd say the market is competitive. I think it's even more competitive than it once was, especially pre-pandemic. I think obviously everything's changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the proliferation of remote work and people being more comfortable with that setup, I think that's in the conversation now. And especially, like I said, in my area as far as graphic designers, freelance work, I mean, that's kind of more so the trend that we're seeing is, not always, but sometimes that's very much the expectation that some of that be built in. And I think industries have to kind of adapt and change to that, and some may not be. And, you kind of tighten the pool, if you will. So it's interesting, but, not unlike challenges in the past.
That's great. So you're working a lot with freelancers and remote folks for the graphic design portions of your
We
business.
don't. We're
Okay.
primarily in-house, and
Okay.
that's just because of the nature of our products. Because it's much more hands-on. It's not necessarily just you. You stay far away from the products, and you don't necessarily have an understanding of how things work. It's very mechanical. We have done that in the past, and I don't feel like it's worked out so well. That's not to say that we're not open to that, but just that it works better when they can kind of get a hands-on experience and learn a little bit more about the product itself to kind of have that extra understanding. So.
And I'm sure it makes a big difference if we can switch gears to Elmira Signs now. I'm sure all those graphic designers make a big difference of being right there in-house and in the community because, if you're making signs for local businesses, they have an idea of what that business is like, what the brand is like because they can go there and experience the business itself. Is that something you think about when it comes to Elmira Signs and the graphic design when you're designing the signs for folks?
So that's kind of its own beast, which is kind of strange to talk about. I feel like most businesses are working in an opposite fashion to us, where on the national level we are a big name in traffic safety, and that's fantastic. But as time has gone on, that has kind of taken over and been more the identity of the company, and people that live around here don't necessarily know of our full capabilities and see us more as a traffic safety destination, which is fantastic, but it kind of curtails us from building a more local strength, which we used to have but has kind of changed over time, which is why we're now using Elmira Signs as a division of Eastern Metal to kind of bring more consciousness to the local scene. We're getting more involved in local events, making sure that people are aware of who we are. So like I said, it's kind of opposite, whereas other businesses are looking to grow because they've already kind of got a stranglehold locally. We're kind of the opposite.
I love that, and you're bringing it back home. Can you tell us what kinds of signs you're making out of what kind of materials and how you go about producing those signs?
Absolutely. So it is kind of similar to the traffic end of things as far as making the signs. We can put signs on really any sort of material, but we work a lot with a composite material called Max Metal quite a bit. It's a very durable metal-like substrate. We do a lot with aluminum signage. We do a lot with just straight up plastics. And really we're digital printing everything. We have giant flatbed printers that we can do large format printing on, which is interesting because as technology has kind of strengthened and costs have been reduced, our competition now, as far as on a local level, isn't just necessarily sign companies. It's guys just doing it out of their garage because they have more access to the technology, and we think that's fantastic because our other play in that is we purchase so much material and vinyl, and we buy direct. These little guys that they might view us in competition with, we can support them. They can buy directly from us, and they get better pricing because they necessarily can't with the volume that they're buying. So we're kind of trying to, get other sign places by us to understand, hey, we're not the bad guys. Let's have a discussion. There's some things that we can't do. We don't do a lot of sign painting, while that's kind of a lost art, if you will. schools and stuff still love having, on their, cinder block, baseball stadiums and stuff like that, some nice painted signs. We've got a guy in Elmira Heights that does that. So there's things that we do well, things that they do well. I think the space is open to having all kinds of competition.
I love that, and the fact that you're supporting smaller businesses as well is very respectable. Are you also installing the signs when you make them?
We are. We have a full install team, which is another area that these smaller guys necessarily can't do. As far as supporting local business, we just did a giant Pudgy sign for Pudgy's on the south side of Elmira, which very large undertaking. Lots of lifts and safety precautions being taken, but those are the ones that we get the most excited about because it's big and bold and we're up there and I get to talk about it, and we love that.
And that's what sort of sets you apart from some of the smaller businesses, that you have access to those lifts. You can make those big installs rather than somebody who has a smaller shop and maybe installs a sign at the office place or just outside a smaller business.
Right, using a ladder or something like that. And that's totally fine. And most businesses, that's probably all they would, need. But, we do a lot of installation as well for, not even just small business, but like Taco Bell, things like that, are larger size buildings, banks, things like that, are kind of a little bit more out of the reach of some of these other guys. So.
How are you feeling like that part of the business is coming along? Are you making good strides into getting out into community, or are you really trying to focus on getting out there more, or a little bit of both?
I think it was a struggle to start. Mm-hmm. I will say that because the awareness is just not there. Right. And that, as I had said, that was kind of our biggest hurdle, is making sure that people knew that we can do literally whatever you want. Just come to us, and even if we're not if our pricing isn't great, we at least want to be part of the conversation in town, where we're presenting our pricing and having that as an option for them. As far as us getting involved, we're doing more local events, sponsorships, things like that. And that's just to kind of create the kind of community and, bring that awareness back that, we're really looking for. And that's been great. Online presence has been big too, making sure that people understand and know that there is a local sign shop that they can count on to call on. And slowly but surely, I think we're coming along. We did just recently hire a new salesperson on that end of things, so the division is growing. So something good's happening. So I will pat myself and my team on the back. Good things are happening. So we're getting busy.
That's great. That's great to hear. And the fact that the bigger part of it, Eastern Metal Signs and Safety, that's behind you, can make that possible to become more part of the community in that way is really special for a company that's been there for so long.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, but to have the backup is much different than, I want to start a sign business and I want to compete in the local market and the funds aren't there, the team support isn't there. Yeah, I will say that, we do have a leg up on anyone else trying to get in. But hey, I'll take what I can get.
I love it. That's so great that you guys are in the community and everything. If we could switch back to Eastern Metal Signs and Safety for a minute, I did a search on Google and I noticed that you're selling products on your website, but you're also selling products on Amazon and Wal-Mart websites, among some others. How much of your business comes from being partners on those big name websites? And would you recommend other local companies trying to sell their products on Amazon and Walmart.com as well?
So I think it's a double-edged sword, and it really depends on your scalability. So previously when I was with Eastern Metal, part of my job, which it no longer is, there's an entire department dedicated to it. Amazon was but a blink, in the corner of our owner's eye, and he basically said, I think this is something that we need to do. It's not really working super well. Can you take it over? And I said, sure. Having no prior knowledge, obviously us just being on Amazon and buying, stupid products that we need on our day-to-day, had no idea how to do it, but obviously going online, educating yourself, and learning as much as you can. It is now I will use the word behemoth.
Wow.
It's absolutely huge. Like I said, there's an entire team now just dedicated to making sure that we have proper product, things like that. Dan, our manager, is really great. And a lot of it has to do with making sure that we have inventory of the products and shipping. We have a shipping department. So to kind of circle back on your question, whereas you asked, do I feel like local smaller businesses could benefit? I think they could. But a lot of it is the e-commerce expectation of time. So when you buy a product, you are expecting, I need it in X amount of time. And kind of the Amazon mentality is, next day, 2 days, making sure that you can get your product fast. That's kind of the new norm where we just think that we hit the order button and we expect it on our doorstep. So we have had to tighten those things up because our lead times are not that aggressive, traditionally, but we've had to make sure that we can kind of stay in line with that kind of expectation of timing for shipping. That's been one of our largest hurdles, and probably what I feel like would be the largest hurdle for a small business kind of moving forward in that direction is kind of making sure that you can scale your business properly from a shipping point of view. So.
Yeah, I didn't think about it from that perspective. I always think about like buying soap or something and expecting that next day or 2 days. But buying a road sign or a barricade or something like that and expecting that in 2 days is completely different, even though it's the same website.
Sure.
So I'm really interested to hear that making your products available through like prime shipping in 2 days.
So we're not prime shipping.
Okay,
yeah,
so it's different.
It is different. Yep, you can. So the differentiation is you can send all of your product to an Amazon facility and they handle everything. That's FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. They take care of all that. So you're really just passing off paperwork as orders come in, and the Amazon facility does that for you. A lot of businesses that don't have full shipping departments, that is a better road for them. Amazon takes a cut of that because they're taking care of the shipping end of things. We don't have that issue, so we don't necessarily need to, put in that kind of legwork and lean on Amazon in that way. So that, again, scalability, that's kind of where we play.
And because you can, you have your own warehouse, you have your own means to store all of the products that you're selling on Amazon, you don't have to give that cut to Amazon for them to ship it out for you and hold it in their warehouse.
Correct.
So you're able to make a little bit more than what somebody else would say if I was to send off a bunch of, soap or something to the Amazon warehouse and then they send it out.
Correct. Yep.
All right, that makes sense. I also saw that you are pretty good partners with Grainger as well. And I noticed that when searching for Eastern Metal Signs and Safety, there were ads that showed up, shopping ads, and they were primarily behind those ads. They feature your products. Do you share an advertising budget with them, or are they one of your retailers in that sense? How does that relationship work?
So they're basically a retailer of ours.
Okay.
We don't have a massive amount of control like we would in an Amazon situation. They have kind of their own mechanism behind it, but they're certainly large enough that we are more than happy to play in the Grainger sandbox just because they're such a big company. And we've seen great growth, and we've been with them for years. So it's been a great relationship. Dan, who's also, I mentioned, in charge of Amazon, also takes care of all of our e-commerce, so is also in charge of Grainger.
So it sounds like you guys have a bunch of different revenue streams for selling safety products to pretty much anybody who wants it, whether it's governments or some smaller local crew or something like that. You got directly through the website, Amazon, Walmart, Grainger. Did you guys think about that ahead of time, like at some point, or did it just be like, okay, now let's do Amazon, now let's do Grainger? How did that become such a big sort of revenue stream architecture?
I would love to say that it was a coordinated effort and there was a large team pushing towards these goals. There wasn't. While we are a small to medium-sized business, we have people focused on, their job, and sometimes it comes up where, we get a hint on something and we say, let's try this out. Who do we have best suited for this? And then people get picked, and that's, trial by fire, if you will. Similar to myself and Amazon, the others kind of came as need arose, if you will. So while it's now a much bigger conversation because e-commerce is just kind of the way most people purchase now, years ago when these things were kind of being talked about and formulated, I don't know if it was such a demand or predominant, at least in the traffic safety side of things. I think for electronics and books and things like that, it was probably more so commonplace, but I think that's, obviously opened up to literally any kind of good or service that you could possibly imagine. So
you guys are staying open-minded, and taking sort of chances in different areas online. I feel like that's where some businesses fail. They stay traditionally minded. We'll sell it through our website. That's good enough. But you guys are noticing opportunities, Amazon, Walmart, Grainger, and saying, let's give it a shot. Is that sort of a mindset that is just in Eastern Metal Signs and Safety, that, a little bit more open-minded, let's try some of these things and see if there's a direction of where we can possibly sell some of this stuff?
I think you have to, because, I myself have never owned a business, but I feel like part of that mindset has to be one of adaptation and changing, because the market is so wild, even just from the prices of products, and you have to be able to have backup plans. You have to be able to read kind of the writing on the walls and see where things are moving. And sometimes it's a good move. Sometimes it pays dividends, and other times, I can think of one, where, I won't say names or anything like that, but some e-commerce stuff just doesn't work out for whatever reason, and you kind of have to take your licks and move on, because there's lots of opportunities. But yeah, adaptation, 100% have to.
I love it. Definitely a good perspective to have, especially for such a great local business like Eastern Metal Signs and Safety. I noticed on Instagram that you're also making wine trail road signs for the Finger Lakes wineries. I've seen Bet the Farms. They've been a guest here on the podcast.
Okay, yeah, I did see that. Yep.
All right. So what are some of the policies that New York State has that you have to keep in mind for those signs? Because I do see them every once in a while, and I didn't think about it until I noticed that you guys make those.
There's not a lot of regulation on the wine trail signs themselves, more so with putting them up than anything else. Making sure that you have proper safety precautions when you're putting those things up on the giant blue billboards, which, we do all the time. We do probably one a week, not just specifically with wine trail, but, restaurants, lodging, things like that.
Okay, so those exit signs,
Yep.
The things like, okay, interesting.
Yep. You wouldn't think it, but, I guess that's an area where the two, the Elmira Signs and Eastern Metal kind of blur, because we're doing it for local business, but it's traffic related. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. I don't think really anyone else does that kind of work. So that's, I guess, kind of a niche that we can take care of for customers.
Wow. So if you're the only ones that do that around here, how far are you traveling to install those? Is it statewide? Is it nationwide?
So, there are other sign companies that do take care of it.
Okay.
Not in our immediate area, but we do about an hour radius, is what we like to say. So probably up until like Binghamton. We do sometimes cover, Ithaca area, but you guys have local sign shops here. And like I said, they've got their niche, and it's oftentimes much more, they're able to kind of react faster than we are, just due to location specifically. So
Makes sense. I just thought it was a very niche thing, super niche. I haven't seen anybody who does that before.
We do all kinds of stuff. Interesting note, we just bought a giant CNC laser cutter, and we're about to roll out a couple new products. We are trying fireplaces.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yep, that you can self-assemble. It fits all right into each other, and we can do any kind of design on it with the CNC machine. But, just one of those things that is new and interesting that we always like to tell people, that we can do. If you need a sign that's just etched metal, we can do that too.
And custom too, if somebody has a design in mind, you could make that for them?
100%. Yeah, we do all that in-house. And something that, I was talking to our team the other day is, a lot of companies come to us, on the local end of things, and, they have a logo. And while that's fantastic, they are probably oftentimes the ones that are making the logo themselves, or they don't have anything. And we don't offer that per se as a service, but it's more a value add for them that, they come to us with an idea and we send it to our graphic design team and they take care of it 100%, and it's absorbed into the cost. It's really nothing. Whereas a traditional graphic designer on the street, is going to charge $200 plus for a logo design, which agree, disagree. That's just kind of how the market is. But we take that all in-house, and I think that's fantastic for local businesses that are looking for, a little bit more outside of just, hey, make my sign, but I need some design help as well, as far as setting up the logo for the actual project itself. So
right, because this setup process, you're saying a lot of companies or small businesses do have some sort of logo, but it might be a JPEG, 100 by 100 pixels or something.
It is almost always a JPEG,
and it needs to be vector,
100%.
Right? It needs to be something like an EPS.
Vector, yep.
So you can make it any size that it needs to be without it blurring, which is the point of confusion that a lot of people have.
Yep.
Do you find yourself explaining that a lot to folks?
So our sales team is very good at kind of making that distinction with customers, and while they feel like they may be kind of ahead of the game and, here, like I have everything set up, we do kind of have to explain that, there is more work needing to be done on the logo than just, send the JPEG file and off to the races. It's not that easy. There's plenty of setup, especially depending on what kind of format we're printing on too. Sometimes you have to do it in multiple pieces depending on the size of the sign that they're looking to do. But yeah, we do all kinds of stuff, banners. Anything that you could think of, we can make for a customer.
Sounds like a really exciting time for both Eastern Metal Signs and Safety and also Elmira Signs. Is there any new areas of focus? What is the future looking like for both of these companies?
Future's great. Sales are up, which is all that anybody hopes and, and cares to do. The local side of things is where I've been spending a lot of my time. And just making sure that has a decent trajectory, and making sure that, like I said, that we're in the conversation, that we're a player in those quotes when new businesses come in or when banks are looking for a change, that we can, submit those quotes to them. So
I love it, and I wish you guys the best of luck. It sounds like you guys are doing really cool stuff. Shaun, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or possibly tell people where they can find you online?
Sure. We are at signsafety.com as far as on the traffic end of things, and we're at elmirasigns.com for the custom small business, local business division. So we're on Facebook. Pretty much we're as everywhere as we can be.
I love to hear it. We'll have the links in the description as well. Shaun, thank you so much for being a guest today. Wish you the best. If anybody is interested in video production services, you can find out more about us at wellsaidmedia.com. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.